Hi, I'm Kelsey. I'll be refuting the speech on the Stop Online Piracy Act, otherwise known as SOPA. The claim was that the Stop Online Piracy Act would not benefit the Internet. In my opinion, I agree, but I don't think that the evidence and reasoning supports the claim. The three supporting claims he had was it would shut down websites where users post copyright media. Second, it would censor the Internet following similar footsteps to other countries. And three, that SOPA will fail to stop piracy. Okay, so his first point was it would shut down websites where users post copyright media. The advocate has evidence and reasoning issues. He says that users who post copyright content could face 5 years in jail for their first offense, but he doesn't give any evidence for this. He did not have any quote saying this, and my research showed that no evidence could prove this. After I read the bill, I didn't see anything about jail time. They did discuss that they could shut down websites without going to court first, which he could have argued that was like against your due process if that's what you wanted, but that wasn't part of it. And then also he started talking about why YouTube would go dark, but he didn't give any reasoning after his quote. From the same article, from his Google quote, it says that SOPA says that a site can be deemed a SOPA scofflaw if it facilitates copyright infringement. And to me, that would have made me understand that any site that posts copyright could be shut off. So he basically just generalized why it would be shut down. And secondly, his second point was it would censor the Internet to follow similar footsteps to other countries. And this was the point that I had the most trouble with because his example was China. And China does censor their Internet, but they don't censor their Internet because of copyright issues. They censor their Internet because of political issues. They don't want people going on Google and Googling how freedom is in America because they're a dictatorship. They also don't want you going on Facebook and getting a group together to have a revolt. So their censoring laws are completely opposite than what SOPA was trying to do. According to the New York Times, in addition to China's massive firewalls and intrusive softwares, the government employs thousands of paid commentators who pose as ordinary web users to counter criticism of the government. So they pay people 50 cents each to go and write good things about the government when people post bad things. So all they care about is keeping their dictatorship in place. So his second claim that we were following in the footsteps of other countries really doesn't have any valid evidence. And third, that SOPA will fail to stop piracy. The advocate says that majority of websites are foreign and they do not have to conform to U.S. law, so they would not be affected. He talked about Pirate Bay, which is from Sweden, and he reasons that you will be able to type in the IP address, which is true. But the DNS, which is a domain name system, keeps all the IP addresses in it like a phone book, and the government can take them off the DNS, so when any of us try to find them, you can't have them. So unless you go and write down all the websites that you want, like Pirate Bay IP addresses, and they don't change them, then it does you no good because you won't be able to find them still. So in conclusion, even though I do agree that SOPA would not benefit our Internet, the advocate needed more research on his topics and more just generalized facts than anything else. Thank you.
Right, from a communication point of view, it's never a good idea, for instance, for the defense attorney to say, I do think my client is guilty, but I don't think the prosecution did a very good job of proving that they are guilty. You don't need to take that position. Just make the argument that, the advocate didn't adequately prove the claim. You don't have to take a position. Nobody's judging you as a human being on what your position here is. We're just judging the arguments that are being made. So I know that it's, it sounds like a defensive sort of thing to do to begin with, and it puts you kind of on this awkward ground later on. I think that you've got a pretty good argument on a couple of the points. For instance, you challenge the issue of jail time on the first point. You say that the advocate failed to present any evidence to support this. You reviewed the legislation itself. It doesn't mention anything about jail time. It only talks about these particular kinds of things, and you say, and it's only sites that facilitate copyright material. Well, the advocate used the example of YouTube, I think, and how it would go black. And basically, the quote that you use on this seems to support the advocate's position. So that really was a little bit confusing. I think there's good information to show, for instance, that the vast majority of stuff that appears on YouTube that is user-created or even uses copyright material falls under the fair use provisions, and so wouldn't be a copyright infringement. So, for example, if somebody makes a parody video or trailer or something like that, where they're doing a commentary on something, or they've got a clip from a news show that they're using on their web channel to do commentary on, and it's identified as belonging to their organization, and they're not showing the whole news show, that's fair use. There's no problem with that. The question then, the real issue is, people who post whole movies, for example, on YouTube, they post it in 5 sections so that everybody can watch the movie, and you're going, hey, wait a second, that's not fair use. It's not political parody. It's not commentary. It's not a partial use of it. It's a whole use. That would be problematic. And then YouTube would be responsible for getting that kind of stuff off. I think that's the way that argument needs to go. On the second argument, basically your whole argument here is they've got an invalid analogy because the censorship that they're talking about in China is vastly different, and making the comparison here doesn't work at all. We're talking about commercial use of copyrighted material, which is non-political in nature, versus the whole political nature of the Chinese system. Trying to suggest that we would end up in that position is ridiculous. I think you've got a good explanation about why the two are not really comparable. And then on the third point, I thought you had a very straightforward explanation about how it probably would be able to work because of the DNS codes, and that you're not going to have access to what the codes are. Sure, you can type in the URL address, but that's only if you have the URL address and it doesn't change, and that's one of the problems. Who holds on to that kind of information? Who's going to have that information to get to those sites? All right, thank you.